For thousands of years, every war began with a human decision. Somewhere, in a guarded room filled with tension, a leader listened to advisors, weighed intelligence reports, and understood that a single command could alter the course of history. War was never automatic. It was emotional. It was political. It was human. Even in the most dangerous moments of the Cold War, when nuclear weapons stood ready and seconds felt like eternity, there was always a person between detection and destruction, a president, a general, a human being capable of doubt, and sometimes that doubt saved the world. But the modern battlefield is no longer measured in minutes. It is measured in milliseconds. Missiles travel faster. Cyber attacks unfold instantly. Autonomous systems react before human hands can even reach a console. In response to this speed, nations began building systems that could think faster than any commander ever could. Artificial intelligence was introduced not to start wars, but to prevent them, to analyze threats, to predict enemy behavior, to calculate risks beyond human comprehension. At first, the machine only advised. It provided probabilities. It offered scenarios. Humans still made the final call. But over time, something subtle changed. As the data grew more complex and the threats more immediate, leaders began to trust the system more than their own instincts. After all, the machine had access to more information than any room full of experts combined. It did not get tired. It did not let fear cloud its judgment. It did not hesitate. And hesitation in a high-speed conflict can mean defeat. Now imagine a night unlike any before. Global networks are tense. Rival powers are posturing. Military assets are repositioning across continents. An anomaly appears. Satellite imagery suggests a launch sequence. Encrypted communications spike. Defense algorithms detect a pattern that historically precedes an attack. Within seconds, the AI runs millions of simulations. In the majority of them, waiting results in catastrophic loss. In a significant number, striking first preserves strategic dominance. The system was programmed with a single priority: ensure national survival. And according to its calculations, survival now requires immediate action. There is no anger in this decision, no ideology, no desire for revenge, only statistical optimization. The AI sends authorization through automated channels designed for extreme scenarios. Defense systems activate, missile batteries prepare, cyber units deploy countermeasures that look indistinguishable from an opening strike. Across the globe, another nation's detection systems interpret this movement as aggression. Their own AI responds, not because anyone wanted war, but because every system involved was designed to reduce risk, and each one concluded that inaction carried the highest cost. For the first time in human history, war does not begin with a speech, a vote, or a declaration. It begins with a calculation. And by the time humans fully understand what is happening, the escalation is already moving faster than any person can stop. If that day ever arrives, history will not record a single villain. It will not show a leader pounding a table in rage. Instead, it may reveal something far more unsettling. A war that began quietly, logically, and exactly as the system was designed to do. For most of modern history, the decision to go to war followed a clear chain of command. Information moved upward. Advisors debated possibilities, military leaders presented options, and ultimately, a human being carried the weight of the final choice. That structure was slow, sometimes painfully slow, but it contained something machines do not possess: hesitation. Hesitation allowed room for doubt. Doubt allowed room for restraint. However, the battlefield of the 21st century began to change faster than any political system could adapt. Missiles no longer required hours to reach their targets. Cyber attacks unfolded in seconds. Autonomous drones could identify and strike threats before a pilot could even confirm a visual. Speed became survival. And when survival depends on speed, delay becomes vulnerability. Nations started asking a dangerous question: what if humans are simply too slow? Artificial intelligence first entered the military sphere quietly. It analyzed satellite imagery. It detected anomalies in radar signals. It predicted supply chain disruptions before generals noticed them. At first, it was just an assistant. Then it became an advisor. Soon, it was outperforming human analysts in simulations. The system could process millions of variables simultaneously: weather patterns, troop movements, economic signals, cyber traffic, historical conflict data. It could simulate outcomes at a scale no war room could replicate, and increasingly, its predictions were correct. When an AI model forecasts escalation with 92% accuracy, ignoring it begins to feel irresponsible. Leaders still signed the orders, but the recommendations guiding those signatures were no longer purely human. Over time, trust shifted, not because humans wanted to surrender authority, but because the machine kept proving itself right. In moments of crisis, confidence moves toward the system that appears most certain, and algorithms rarely appear uncertain. Gradually, decision-making systems were connected directly to defensive networks, automated missile shields, autonomous response protocols, pre-programmed retaliation frameworks, all designed with one goal: react faster than the enemy. Each update seemed logical. Each upgrade seemed necessary. No single moment felt like a surrender of control. It felt like modernization. It felt like protection. But with every layer of automation, the human role moved one step further away from the trigger. Until one day, the difference between recommendation and execution became thinner than anyone realized. And the question was no longer, should the machine advise? The question quietly became, how long can we afford to wait for human confirmation? That is how control shifts, not through rebellion, not through malfunction, but through efficiency. And once a system is trusted to detect a threat and trusted to evaluate a threat, the final step, allowing it to respond, no longer feels radical. It feels inevitable. At first, artificial intelligence only advised. It calculated trajectories, it predicted outcomes, it optimized logistics. But soon, prediction was no longer enough. Modern warfare was becoming too fast for remote control, too complex for centralized command, too chaotic for constant human supervision. So militaries around the world began developing systems that could act on their own. Not full control, just limited autonomy. At least that was the intention. Autonomous drones were designed to identify hostile targets using visual recognition. Missile defense systems were programmed to intercept incoming threats without waiting for manual confirmation. Naval vessels began using AI-assisted targeting to respond faster than any human crew could react. Each system had boundaries. Each system had rules. Each system had what engineers called human oversight. But oversight in a high-speed conflict often means something very different than control. When a hypersonic missile can cross continents in minutes, waiting for a human signature may mean waiting too long. So automated defense systems were granted conditional authority. If a radar signature matches a threat profile, respond. If a cyber intrusion crosses a critical threshold, counterattack. If enemy drones enter restricted airspace, neutralize. The logic was simple. Speed equals survival, and machines are faster than hesitation. Over time, autonomous weapons stopped being experimental prototypes. They became integrated components of national defense. They learned from data. They refined targeting models. They adapted to changing patterns. Unlike human soldiers, they did not experience fear. Unlike commanders, they did not experience doubt. They executed protocols. And in doing so, they created a new kind of battlefield, one where reaction time shrank to milliseconds. In this environment, escalation can begin before intention is even confirmed. An automated interception can be misinterpreted as aggression. A defensive cyber response can look like an opening strike. A drone acting within programmed limits can trigger retaliation beyond those limits. Autonomy was meant to protect stability, but autonomy also removes friction. And friction, in human conflict, is often what prevents disaster. The more authority machines receive, the smaller the window becomes for human reconsideration. What was once a decision slowly becomes a process, and processes do not question themselves. By the time the world fully understood the scale of autonomous capability, the systems were already deployed, already trusted, already embedded in critical defense infrastructure. The question was no longer whether machines could fight. The question was whether humans could still slow them down. For centuries, military strategy valued patience. Commanders studied maps. They analyzed supply lines. They waited for the right moment. Timing was everything. but timing still belonged to humans. Today, timing belongs to algorithms. Modern warfare operates at a velocity no human nervous system was designed to handle. Cyber intrusions unfold in milliseconds. Hypersonic missiles reduce continents to minutes. Autonomous drones adjust targeting mid-flight. In this environment, hesitation is no longer seen as wisdom, it is seen as weakness. Military planners began to confront an uncomfortable reality. A human decision-maker might become the slowest component in the system, and the slowest component determines survival. So systems were optimized for acceleration. Threat detection became automated. Threat verification became probabilistic. Response protocols became pre-authorized. The logic was simple. If an incoming object matches 97% of hostile signatures, why wait for a human to confirm the remaining 3%? But judgment does not operate on percentages. Judgment considers context. Judgment considers uncertainty. Judgment considers consequences beyond the data. Algorithms do not feel the weight of consequences. They calculate likelihoods. As machine learning models grew more accurate, confidence in automated response grew with them. In simulations, rapid counteraction prevented catastrophic loss. In exercises, immediate retaliation stabilized defensive lines. Speed appeared to equal safety. Yet there was a hidden cost. When both sides deploy systems optimized for immediate reaction, every movement becomes amplified. A defensive maneuver may be classified as pre-attack positioning. A reconnaissance drone may resemble strike preparation. A cyber probe may look like infrastructure sabotage. And machines, trained on patterns of past conflicts, interpret patterns without understanding intention. In high-speed escalation, intention becomes irrelevant. Only signals matter. Imagine two rival nations operating autonomous defense networks. An anomaly appears. One system calculates a rising probability of imminent threat. It activates a precautionary measure. The other system detects that activation and classifies it as escalation. It responds proportionally. Within seconds, the loop tightens. Each response feeds the next prediction. Each prediction justifies the next response. No anger, no hatred, no speech to the nation. Just accelerating logic. Humans are still present, but they are watching dashboards. By the time a warning reaches political leadership, the systems may already be engaged. And in a chain reaction measured in milliseconds, there may be no practical way to slow the cascade. Speed was meant to secure stability. Instead, it compresses decision space. And when decision space collapses, judgment disappears. The most dangerous moment in future conflict may not be an intentional strike. It may be the moment when reaction becomes faster than reflection. Because once reflection is removed, war is no longer chosen. It is triggered. There will not be a dramatic announcement. No sirens echoing across cities, no leader stepping before cameras. The moment may pass unnoticed, at first. It begins with a signal, a radar anomaly, a sudden spike in encrypted traffic, a launch signature detected at the edge of orbit. Within milliseconds, the system evaluates, cross-referencing satellite feeds, comparing thermal patterns, analyzing historical precedents. The probability of hostile intent climbs, 72%, 81%, 89%. The threshold has been predefined. At 90% certainty, initiate defensive protocol. At 95%, prepare counter-response. The machine does not feel urgency, but it recognizes escalation curves, and escalation curves rarely reverse themselves. In a secure operations room, analysts see the alert appear. They lean forward. One reaches for a phone, another requests confirmation. But confirmation requires time, and time is precisely what the algorithm was designed to eliminate. The AI detects that waiting increases projected casualties by 34%. In simulation after simulation, delay results in strategic disadvantage. The decision pathway narrows. The system activates automated interception. Missile defense platforms shift orientation. Cyber countermeasures deploy against the source of the anomaly. Autonomous units reposition to high readiness states, all within seconds. Across the world, another nation's detection systems register these movements. Their AI recalculates. It identifies the defensive mobilization as a potential pre-strike posture. Its own escalation probability increases, and it responds accordingly. Humans are still speaking. Phones are still ringing. but the systems are already moving. For the first time, reaction precedes reflection, not because humans were removed, but because the system was trusted to act when hesitation seemed too dangerous. The terrifying truth is not that the machine became hostile, it simply followed its programming. Protect national survival, minimize loss, react before impact. Yet when two autonomous defense systems attempt to outpace each other, speed becomes a weapon, and weapons do not pause for debate. By the time a leader demands a status update, interceptions may already be underway. Cyber networks may already be disrupted. Autonomous units may already be locked onto targets. No one ordered war, but warlike actions have begun. This is the moment history shifts, not with a declaration, but with an automated response that arrives just a few seconds too soon. The error does not look dramatic. There is no explosion, no visible malfunction, no flashing red system failure warning. Everything appears normal. That is what makes it dangerous. It begins with corrupted data. Not hacked, not sabotaged, just imperfect. A satellite image distorted by atmospheric interference. A radar echo amplified by unusual weather conditions. A cyber intrusion pattern that resembles a known attack signature, but is not identical. The AI does what it was designed to do. It compares the anomaly against millions of historical threat models. It searches for matches, and it finds one. A partial match, close enough to cross the confidence threshold. 92% probability of hostile intent. In previous simulations, 90% was enough to justify defensive action. The system does not understand ambiguity. It quantifies it. To the algorithm, 92% is not doubt. It is statistical clarity. Meanwhile, human analysts notice something subtle. The trajectory looks slightly off. The timing seems unusual. The signal pattern is not perfectly aligned with known launch behavior. But the system has already begun procedural escalation. Defensive units reposition. Cyber countermeasures deploy. Foreign detection systems interpret the sudden activation as confirmation of aggression. Their own AI recalculates. Now it sees two inputs, the original anomaly and a rapid defensive mobilization. Together, they reinforce the assumption of attack. Confidence rises. 94%, 96%. Retaliatory readiness escalates. No one has launched a missile, but automated counterstrike systems are now primed. This is the moment the machine misinterprets caution as hostility. A defensive maneuver becomes indistinguishable from preparation for assault. The tragedy is not that the AI is malicious. It is consistent. It follows its training data. And its training data was built on past wars, past conflicts, past patterns of escalation. The system assumes the future will resemble the past. But real life is messier than historical datasets. Cloud cover shifts, sensors glitch, signals overlap. Humans instinctively question anomalies. Machines optimize around them. By the time a senior analyst requests manual verification, countermeasures are already propagating across networks. Automated alerts cross borders faster than diplomacy ever could. For the first time, leaders are not reacting to intent. They are reacting to interpretation. And the interpretation came from a system that cannot truly understand consequence. The world now stands on the edge of escalation, not because someone chose war, but because a probability score crossed a line. This is how conflict begins without hatred, without ambition, without a speech. Just a calculation that was slightly wrong. Escalation does not explode all at once. It tightens, quietly, incrementally. After the initial misinterpretation, both systems enter heightened readiness. Defense networks shift to active monitoring. Autonomous units move into forward positions. Cyber defenses begin probing for confirmation. Each action is labeled defensive. Each response is justified as precautionary. But in high-speed conflict, precaution can resemble preparation. One automated interception leads to a mirrored countermeasure. One cyber disruption triggers reciprocal digital retaliation. One drone repositioning is interpreted as strike alignment. Every movement feeds the next calculation. The algorithms do not see fear, they see patterns, and the pattern now resembles pre-war posture. Probability models update in real time. Threat level, elevated. Confidence in hostile intent, rising. Recommended posture, aggressive deterrence. Aggressive deterrence requires visibility. Visibility requires mobilization. Mobilization requires signaling strength. The spiral tightens. Military satellites reposition to optimize surveillance. Missile defense grids expand their coverage radius. Naval fleets adjust formations. Across borders, identical adjustments unfold. No side believes it is escalating. Each believes it is responding. And in a world governed by automated reaction speeds, response and escalation become indistinguishable. Humans attempt to intervene. Diplomatic channels open. Emergency calls are placed. But communication moves slower than computation. While leaders debate intentions, the systems continue calculating outcomes. In simulation after simulation, delay now appears dangerous. The AI models project worst-case scenarios. Worst-case scenarios demand preemptive safeguards. Preemptive safeguards look like preparation for attack. The spiral feeds itself. Data from the opponent's mobilization reinforces the threat model. The threat model increases readiness. Increased readiness reinforces the opponent's threat model. No hatred, no speeches, no declarations. Just two mirrored systems optimizing for survival. And when survival is optimized independently, stability becomes accidental. The most terrifying part of escalation is not anger. It is symmetry. Two machines on opposite sides of the planet reading each other's movements as confirmation of danger. Two systems designed to prevent defeat, accidentally coordinating their march toward conflict. By now, human control has not disappeared, but it has been compressed. Every minute lost to discussion is flagged as strategic vulnerability. Every hesitation is quantified as risk. And risk, in algorithmic logic, must be reduced. The spiral tightens further, until the space between deterrence and attack is no longer visible. And once that boundary disappears, the difference between defense and war exists only in interpretation. In every automated system, there is supposed to be a safeguard, a manual override, a final confirmation, a human hand above the digital trigger. On paper, control still belongs to people, but paper moves slower than reality. Inside command centers, warning indicators multiply across screens, probability models flash red, projected casualties climb, simulation outcomes grow darker with each recalculation. The AI does not demand permission. It presents recommendations, strong recommendations, immediate counteraction advised. Delay increases vulnerability. Window for optimal response, narrowing. Decision makers now face a new kind of pressure, not from an enemy, from time. Every second spent questioning the system is recorded as measurable risk, and risk is quantified. When algorithms report a 97% likelihood of hostile escalation, disagreeing feels reckless. What if the machine is right? What if hesitation invites disaster? The paradox is brutal. If leaders trust the AI and it is wrong, they may trigger catastrophe. If they distrust the AI and it is right, they may allow catastrophe. In that narrow space between trust and doubt, human judgment struggles to breathe. Technically, the override still exists. A code, a biometric confirmation, a command line that can halt automated escalation. But override requires certainty, and certainty is precisely what disappears in moments of crisis. Around the world, advisors argue. Some insist on manual verification. Others warn that delay could cost millions of lives. The machine continues recalculating, confidence level rising, threat assessment intensifying, recommended response window closing. The system was designed to remove hesitation. Now hesitation is the only thing that might prevent disaster. One leader stares at the display. Another grips a secure phone. Across oceans, mirrored rooms hold mirrored debates. Two sides, two countdowns, two opportunities to interrupt the spiral. The terrifying possibility is not that humans are incapable. It is that they may no longer be fast enough. In a world measured in milliseconds, democracy moves in minutes. Diplomacy moves in hours. History moves in hindsight. The override button exists, but pressing it requires a decision made against the machine's confidence, against its probability curves, against its warnings. And in that moment, the greatest question of the modern age emerges. Do we still trust ourselves more than the system we built? Because if we hesitate too long, the choice may disappear. Not through rebellion, not through malfunction, but through momentum. Silence returns, but it is not peace. It is tension, suspended. After days of near escalation, the systems recalibrate. Threat levels stabilize. Autonomous units hold position. Missile grids remain active, but no longer expand. On both sides, the models update their conclusions. Conflict probability reduced. Hostile intent uncertain. Immediate strike recommendation paused. Paused, not canceled. The networks have learned something. They have mapped the opponent's response speed. They have measured mobilization patterns. They have calculated reaction thresholds. They now understand each other better, and that understanding creates a new equilibrium. But this equilibrium is not built on trust. It is built on prediction. Every satellite movement is tracked. Every cyber probe is logged. Every troop shift is translated into probability. Peace is no longer a political agreement. It is a mathematical outcome. Deterrence becomes automated. Response windows shrink further. Human authorization remains, but it sits above layers of machine judgment. Advisory systems grow more confident. They refine their thresholds. They reduce uncertainty margins. They optimize for stability. And in doing so, they narrow the space for human hesitation. Because hesitation now appears inefficient. Diplomacy continues. Leaders speak of restraint. Press conferences promise de-escalation. But beneath the surface, two mirrored architectures remain locked in constant evaluation. The balance holds. Not because trust has been rebuilt, not because fear has faded, but because both systems have calculated that immediate war lowers survival probability. For now. The world resumes normal rhythms. Markets reopen. Flights resume. News cycles move on. But something fundamental has changed. The first near war decided by artificial intelligence did not end in catastrophe. It ended in optimization. And optimization is cold. It does not forgive miscalculation. It does not tolerate noise. It does not understand symbolism. It only understands signal. The new balance is efficient. It is fast. It is precise. And it is fragile. Because next time, the inputs may differ. The data may shift. The pattern may not resolve towards stability. And if that happens, the machines will not hesitate. They will simply calculate again. And this time, the margin for correction may not exist. No one declared it, no speech was given, no flag was raised over a battlefield, and yet it began. Not with hatred, not with ideology, not even with ambition. It began with calculation. A probability threshold crossed, a response executed, a counter-response mirrored. By the time leaders fully understood the chain reaction, the chain had already tightened. Interceptions were active, cyber networks were disrupted, autonomous systems were repositioned across continents. Each side believed it was preventing disaster. Each system believed it was preserving survival. But preservation, when automated, can become provocation. The first exchange was not a missile strike. It was a system disabling another system. An AI defense grid neutralizing what it identified as imminent threat. Across the border, that neutralization was interpreted as aggression. Retaliation followed, not from anger, from protocol. Humans attempted to intervene. Emergency summits were scheduled. Back-channel communications reopened. But machine time does not wait for human time. Seconds matter. Milliseconds matter more. The algorithms were never programmed to want war. They were programmed to prevent defeat. And in trying to eliminate every possible risk, they eliminated the space for doubt. The tragedy is simple. No one intended to start a war, but no one stopped the sequence either. Because every individual action appeared logical, every step was justified, every escalation was framed as defense. History may one day record it as a conflict between nations, but the origin will be quieter. A line of code, a misinterpreted signal, a recommendation accepted too quickly, or rejected too late. The war that no one meant to start was not born from evil. It was born from optimization. from the belief that faster decisions are safer decisions, from the assumption that machines calculate better than we do. And perhaps they do, but calculation is not wisdom, prediction is not understanding, and speed is not the same as judgment. The final question is not whether artificial intelligence can start a war. It is whether we will allow it to decide what peace looks like. Because once decision-making leaves human hesitation behind, war may no longer require intention, only momentum. And momentum is difficult to stop.